Have you ever wondered why some metal and ligand bonds are stronger than others? Or why some metal complexes absorb light in brilliant colors? Then I am so glad you're here to learn all about sigma and pi bonding in metal complexes, which explains all of these properties. Remember the definition for sigma bonding, which basically states that any sort of orbital interaction that lies along the internuclear axis is a sigma bond. And this is true regardless of the type of orbital interactions that are occurring. This can be between two s orbitals, two p orbitals that lie along the internuclear axis, or between an s and a p orbital, or in the case of metals, even a d orbital. Consider, for example, some sort of ligand to metal bond that is being formed through sigma bonding. This can occur between an s orbital, for example, and the dz squared orbital of a metal, which has its orbital density along this internuclear axis, which would give rise to a sigma interaction, because all of the orbital density is lying in between this internuclear axis, or the axis between two different orbitals. Similarly, a p orbital could have the same sigma type of interaction, where if you had a p orbital on a ligand, it could interact with the exact same d orbital, the dz squared, to give us another sigma type of interaction, because the definition of sigma interactions is a symmetry argument. Now let's consider pi bonding between metals and ligands. Importantly, an s orbital is a sigma symmetric orbital only, and therefore s orbitals could never participate in pi bonding. However, we can have pi bonding anytime you have orbital overlap that is on either side of the internuclear axis, specifically on the left, on the right in this position, but if we had ligand metal orientation in this case, either above and below the internuclear axis. And you've seen this before in the context of a pi bond that's formed in like an organic molecule, for example. Anytime you have orbital overlap above and below the internuclear axis, this is the definition of a pi bond. Similarly, a ligand could have a p orbital in this orientation, and it can interact with a d orbital from the metal, which looks like this, where we have the same overlap of orbitals both on either side of this internuclear axis, giving us another pi interaction. So both of these are examples of pi bonding interactions. In many cases, ligands are comprised of more than one atom, so we're not considering the atomic orbitals on a singular atom, but instead we need to consider the molecular orbitals of different molecules. For example, cyanoligands, or Cn- can be drawn a molecular orbital diagram that looks basically exactly like this, where you have a certain number of sigma, sigma star, pi, and pi star orbitals that are formed via the overlap of the individual atomic orbitals to make this molecular orbital diagram. If we take a look at the frontier molecular orbitals, we can see that the HOMO of the cyanoligand, or the highest occupied molecular orbital, is going to be the sigma bond that is formed between carbon and nitrogen. And the LUMO, or the lowest unoccupied molecular orbital, is going to be the pi star orbital, or the pi anti-bonding orbital. And it's at this stage that we introduce a concept that's really fundamental to understanding metal to ligand interactions. If we were to draw what the HOMO of the molecular orbital diagram for Cn- or cyanoligand looked like, this sigma bonding interaction, this would be basically what the overlap of those orbitals would produce as far as a molecular orbital. And again, this is a sigma bonding interaction. Similarly, if we were to draw what the LUMO, or the lowest unoccupied molecular orbital, looked like, since it is a pi star or pi anti-bonding orbital, we would predict that it would look like the deconstructive overlap of two p orbitals that are side-on to one another, giving us our pi star or pi anti-bonding molecular orbital. And what you should notice is that the orbital density for both the HOMO and the LUMO, both according to our energy molecular orbital diagram, and the shape of these molecular orbitals is centered around carbon. Now remember, all ligands are sigma donors, and in fact, we can predict that the cyanoligand is going to bind to metals at this carbon position, even though both carbon and nitrogen have lone pairs. It's not until we fully understand the molecular orbital approach that we see why the bonding interaction happens between carbon and different metals. So the bonding interaction happens at this position. And in fact, it's through a sigma interaction between the HOMO of the ligand and the metal orbital, which could overlap in a way to allow us to produce a sigma bonding interaction. So for example, if we were to consider the dx squared minus y squared orbital, we see that we could produce angular overlap between these two orbitals to make a sigma bonding interaction. Now this orbital donation is coming exclusively from the ligand because we're using the HOMO, which is occupied with electrons. So this is where the electrons can be donated to the metal to make that sigma bonding interaction. Now what you should notice is that it's also possible to generate some sort of interaction between a different d orbital and the pi star or pi anti-bonding molecular orbital on the ligand. Because now we have the correct symmetry where we can do some sort of pi interaction because the overlap of these orbitals are above and below that internuclear axis. However, if we go back to looking at the molecular orbital diagram, we see that the lowest unoccupied molecular orbital by definition is free of electrons, meaning it can accept electrons at that position. And this is where a really important concept known as pi backbonding comes into play, where electrons from the metal can be used to donate into the pi star or anti-bonding pi orbital of our ligand, because we have the right scenario where we have the correct symmetry where these two orbitals can overlap, and also we know that the lowest unoccupied molecular orbital, or the pi star, is empty and therefore can receive electrons or accept electrons. And if the metal has electrons in its d orbital, it can use those to back donate into that empty pi star orbital. And again, this is known as pi backbonding. So anytime you have metal electrons that donate back to the metal in a pi interaction, that is known as pi backbonding. And we need to consider what this means for our metal and our ligand. So when this first sigma interaction occurs, the ligand is donating electrons to the metal. This is producing a new metal to ligand bond. Similarly, when pi backbonding occurs, electrons from the metal are donating back into an empty orbital of the ligand. And this is effectively like making another bond. So in fact, when pi backbonding occurs, you're increasing the bond order between the metal and the ligand. The first bond is formed in this sigma interaction, and additional bond order can be contributed through this pi backbonding. So what that means is that you're strengthening the bond if pi backbonding can occur because you're increasing the bond order. But it also means that you're doing something to the ligand. Remember, this ligand, this cyano ligand, we consider to be a triple bond between the carbon and the nitrogen. And that's because if we were to do a bond order calculation for this molecule, we would find that there are 2, 4, 6, 8 bonding electrons. There are 2 anti-bonding electrons, and if we divide that by 2, we see that the bond order should be 3. However, when we do pi backbonding, remember we're placing electrons back into an anti-bonding orbital. Imagine if we had placed 2 additional electrons in this pi star orbital. That would reduce the bond order of the CN ligand, and when doing so, that is going to have an impact on the bond energy between carbon and nitrogen. It's going to decrease the bond order between carbon and nitrogen, but it's going to increase the bond order between the metal and the ligand. So you can think of this as a synergistic effect where the ligand can donate electrons to the metal, and then the metal can donate electrons back to the ligand, both working in tandem. Now let's consider a different type of ligand, specifically the fluoro ligand. The fluoro ligand is essentially fluoride, or F-, where you have a full valence shell of electrons, or 4 lone pairs surrounding that atom. This means that the s orbital and all 3 p orbitals are filled with electrons. Here is an atomic orbital energy diagram to showcase that the electrons are fully populating both the 2s and the 2p orbitals. So the fluoro ligand is a great ligand for metals, where you can make sigma interactions between the s orbital of fluorine and a d orbital, which would overlap with sigma symmetry, meaning the orbital overlap is along this internuclear axis, to give us sigma interactions. Similarly, the pz orbital, which may go between the metal and the ligand, could also interact with that exact same orbital, because you have a sigma interaction occurring between this internuclear axis where all of the orbital overlap is along that axis. So both of these give rise to sigma bonding interactions, or sigma donations. So these are all ways that we can produce sigma bonding. And remember, all ligands are sigma donors. However, consider a perpendicular p orbital, which might be oriented in this direction, and the type of interaction that could be made with a metal d orbital. For example, there are d orbitals that have this orientation, where now we see that we can make another pi type of interaction. So this is a pi interaction. Now, what's different about this ligand compared to the previous example of the cyano ligand is that now we do not have any empty orbitals on our ligand like we did in cyano, where we had the empty pi star, but instead all of the pi symmetric orbitals for fluoro ligand contain full electrons. And what this means is that you cannot do pi back bonding where the metal donates electrons back to the ligand because there's no empty orbitals with which those electrons can go. However, there are pi symmetric orbitals, namely this one for example, that are filled with electrons that can donate even more pi electrons to the metal. And rather than being called pi back bonding, this one is called pi donating. So these are what are known as pi donating ligands because you have pi symmetric orbitals on the ligand that are fully populated with additional electrons that can be used to donate even more electron density to the metal. And this difference has a huge impact on the metal and ligand interactions. So in a pi back bonding example, you're removing electrons from the metal to put them back on the ligand. But in a pi donating ligand, like in the case of a fluoro group, because you have this pi symmetric orbital, it can donate even more electron density to the metal. On the screen are two different complexes. One metal has two cyano ligands on it, and one metal has a cyano ligand and on the opposite side a fluoro ligand. I want you to think about a few different things. Number one, which of these metal to carbon bonds is going to be the shortest? So between this complex and this complex, which produces a shorter metal to carbon bond? I also want you to think about which of these produces a weaker carbon to nitrogen bond. So which of these is producing a weaker carbon to nitrogen bond? Is it the complex on this side or the complex on this side? If you need to pause the video to give yourself some time to think about it, do that now. So what you need to consider here is what type of ligands are the cyano ligands and the fluoro ligands. Remember, we said previously that the fluoro ligand is a pi donating orbital and the cyano ligand is a pi withdrawing orbital, or what we would say can participate in pi back bonding, so we would say it's a pi acceptor ligand. So we have a pi donator ligand and a pi acceptor ligand. And for this we can think about where are the electrons moving in this metal ligand complex. For example, we know that a metal and the cyano ligand, since it's a pi acceptor, the electrons from the metal are going to this carbon, which means that we're strengthening this metal to carbon bond. And the same is true on this side, where this metal is donating electron density to this carbon. However, remember the orbital that's doing that is an orbital that looks like this, and it is doing so into the pi star ligand of the cyano group, where we have a pi interaction that allows us to do what's known as pi back bonding, where these electrons are being donated back into the empty LUMO or pi star of our cyano ligand. And remember that the fluoro ligand is pi donating, meaning that it is donating some of its electrons back to the metal in a pi orientation, where you have a p orbital, which is filled with electrons that can be used to donate into an empty metal d orbital. So in this case, what's happening is these electrons are being donated to the metal. And this d orbital is the same orbital that's doing pi back bonding with the adjacent cyano group. So in this case, we have pi donation coming from fluorine to the metal, and then the same orbital is taking those electrons and donating them over to the cyano ligand. So the electrons are coming from fluoro, donating into the empty metal d orbital, and then that newly found electron from the pi donation is donating back to the other ligand, the pi acceptor cyano group. In the case of the other complex, rather than having a pi donating ligand, we have another ligand which is capable of doing pi back bonding. So in this case, what we have is a situation where we have electrons from the metal being donated to the ligand on the right and being donated to the ligand on the left. And what that means is that there is an even sharing between both sides of the metal. And there's only so many electrons to go around. So let's say that there was a single electron here in this metal d orbital, which could be used to donate to the ligand on the right. Well, if it's donating it to the ligand on the right, then it can't donate it to the ligand on the left. And then if we move back to this complex, we see that any electrons found in this metal can be used to donate to the ligand on the right, the cyano pi accepting ligand. And in addition to any electrons it already had, it's receiving some pi electrons from the neighboring fluoro ligand. So this is going to give overall more electron density to the metal that it can use to give back to the cyano ligand. Whereas this complex has electrons being shared evenly between both sides of both cyano ligands because this metal is donating electron density in both directions. And since it's having to donate electrons in both directions, that overall leads less of electron density that it can use to donate to either ligand. So what that means is that this metal to carbon cyano group is experiencing even more pi back bonding than this metal cyano group. And again, the reason for that is this one has a pi donating ligand because this ligand can do angular overlap in such a way that is synergistic in pushing electrons over to that metal to carbon bond. And overall what that means is that this metal to carbon bond is going to be the shortest because it can participate in the most pi back bonding. And since it can participate in the most pi back bonding, and this is a pi star orbital, since it is receiving more electrons, that's going to make this carbon to nitrogen triple bond weaker by reducing the bond order. And in turn, what that's going to do is make that carbon to nitrogen bond longer because it's now a weaker bond. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up down below and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on any more chemistry content. If you have any questions, drop it as a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next video.